Okay, so just for the record, so that we know, uh, anything that's controversial that you don't want to talk about, it's not going to happen.
No, you shoot away.
Yeah? Okay.
I'm good at dodging questions.
All right, so obviously I'm here with Stephen Hart. You know, I know many people know you, especially in the national team. I don't know if you know how much people like you and how beloved you are. You're almost like different than a coach. You're like it feels like you're a friend, which is really hard to have as a coach. Usually you have that relationship where you're the coach, I'm the player, I do what you say, you come in, you give your spiel. The trainer is more the friend of the players type of deal. But you, for some reason, have this weird affinity to affect players' lives after the game. They still talk about you fondly, but not as a guy that's a good tactician only or a good strategist, but a good person and a good man, and as well as a good coach. So I don't know if you know that, but that's all the guys that were under you. They all have that affinity for you, you know.
Well, thanks for that. It's always difficult as a coach to walk that line, but
Yeah.
I've always believed that the person that I'm with is individual first,
Yeah.
has a life outside of football, and football second.
Yeah. But do you know that though? Like, do you keep in contact with some of those guys?
I keep in contact with a few players, but not on a regular,
Right.
sort of basis. I'm not the best at that, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do see them in events, etc. And the relationship is one of I see it more of one of respect.
Yeah.
I've always tried to show players respect, and I've also always tried to let the player bring his game, his quality to the team more
Hmm.
than me put something on top of them.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you this vague question that I've never really asked before, because usually I interview players and stuff like that, but first time really interviewing someone like you. What is football to you? If you were to say a perfect game based on how you see the game, if you were watching as a fan, what is it that you're looking for?
Wow, that's a huge question.
Yeah.
First to begin, for me, football is a love affair.
Mm.
First, a love affair with the ball, and then a love affair with the game.
Right.
You know, I see the game as a fan on the context of wanting to entertain, wanting to see a certain type of football where players can freely express themselves within the framework of the collective of a team.
Mm.
But as a coach, sometimes it's not always possible
Mm.
because you just simply don't have that quality.
Right.
And of course, the higher up you are, you have to you have to win games.
Mm.
That's the reality, and you do what is necessary to win the game, rightly or wrongly. Uh, it's the nature of the sport to,
Right.
to win the game,
Yeah.
So
But if
that's,
but if there was a game, right, where say you could win in a 30 game season or 28 game season, right? You could win every game, but it's ugly, like just ugly football, just buffling the ball into the net, 1-0 wins. Would you take that as a coach?
as a coach,
Yeah.
my personal, no. But it would be good for the club, and it would be good for the fans because the fans don't really care.
Right.
If you lose playing beautiful football, you're criticized, and if you win playing ugly football, you're still criticized. So, as a coach, it's difficult for me. When I worked with youngsters in particular,
Uh-huh.
I encouraged a lot of playing, attacking football, be adventurous, and when you have certain players, you also encourage that.
Right.
Bring your game to the team.
Right. Now, the first time that I even heard your name, I think I was on the provincial team, U15.
Wow, you're dating me,
Nobody knows my age yet. And that's the first time I ever heard of you, and I just knew that you were not from Ontario, right? And I don't know if you were in the provincial system or if you were in the national system at the time.
What year would that have been?
Oh boy, now you're dating me. Probably 1999, 98, somewhere around there.
Yeah, 98 I wasn't in the national system. 99 I came in as assistant to Otman Ibu,
As what?
under 17
Okay.
team.
So, okay, so you were never the under 15, 16, nothing. So always you
I only
17.
came in at 99. Holger Osek
Okay.
brought me in.
Holger.
Yeah.
Okay, so that guy brought me into that. Okay, so it's funny because I remember when he first came in, but that's when I first heard of you was the youth, right? And I remember hearing there, with our team, we were kind of thrown together a little bit. I think the first coach I had was Ray Clark, who was the first person to give me that confidence on that level to say, you and Ian Hume could do this. I remember it was Ian Hume. He was different at our age. He had experience overseas, and then he went overseas with Tranmere. But that's when I remember you. I remember you as a youth coach. I don't know if it was an assistant, but something like that.
I'll tell you what, it may have been because Ray Clark, who for me was a fantastic coach
Right.
and helped me a lot
Yeah.
as an individual in coaching.
Yeah.
I have nothing but respect for him.
Yeah.
Ray Clark, myself, and Jim Canavan took an under 15 team with under 17, I can't remember the age, with Ali Gerber. And that we took them to the United States to play a game. And I was there with that group. So it may have evolved from that.
So I was right then.
Yeah, you were
Okay,
actually.
yeah, there you go.
But you
Okay,
just
good.
jarred my memory.
Yeah, I just remember it being youth and stuff. Wow, I didn't even know that you went that far back with Ali Gerba.
Yeah.
That's amazing. He loves you, man. So I knew you as that, and what you just said about football and stuff. I remember our age group we were chugging along, and we used to go to Dusseldorf all the time to these camps, man, and it was always kind of like this, right? It was like gray and wet. I remember like gray and wet, and we went to this big Gothic-looking wooden type.
In Duisburg.
Duisburg, yeah, there it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
We always used to be there, man. And I remember Gavin something was a kid that used to snore a lot, and I would sleep in between the two doors just to get some rest. And I remember not liking it at all. So my experience, like in that way, was not great. But I do remember hearing about your teams, like in that group, playing and enjoying kind of football, and we were not quite like that at the time. So that's the first time that I ever really heard your name. And then, over the years, as I went in and out of the national team, I had a chance to kind of rub shoulders with you a little bit, especially in those Florida camps and stuff. So, like, when it comes to national teams versus club teams, right? Which one how would you distinguish the difference between the two in your philosophy, like how you see the game?
When I had the national team, the youth team, I had an interesting conversation with Holger, because he said, "Listen, I thought Otman Ruby was a fantastic coach. He was organized, he did everything, and he was excellent. Different from myself, because he was a bit standoffish with the players and brought a lot of discipline,
Right.
and." I was like the good cop with the team, But with those teams, I had made up my mind, and I told Holger this, that I have my way, and I want to find the players that can change the way we play as much as possible. And he actually, in all fairness to him, he said to me, "I don't care." Actually, his words were, "I don't give a shit. What I care about is that you find the players that can move to the next level,
Right.
and potentially go to Europe."
Right.
So the first under 17 team that I had in full control of, I think 6 or more of the players actually ended up going to Europe. 6 or 7 of them, yeah.
Okay. Wow. Do you remember any of them?
Yeah, of course. Marcel de Jong, who I won't, I told Holger about, I heard about this kid in Holland. He goes, go get him. And I went, met his parents and all of that.
Yeah.
Marcel de Jong was one. Andrew Hino was another. Jamie Peters was another one.
Mm.
Who else was on that squad?
So you flew over there to meet with them?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Holger goes, go get him. At the time, we had a bit of a budget,
Yeah.
and we were really trying to find players, really trying to find players.
So
You know.
in U17, I left and I went to Stuttgart. And I remember I was there for about 4 months, and I was expecting a call, at least from the national team, to say, because at the time, I remember there was Julian that was for Hanover at the time. There was Paul Stalteri, I think, was there at the time. And then who's that guy that played for Manchester United eventually? Hargraves
Hargraves, yeah.
was there. And then there was me at the youth level. And I didn't know a lot of guys that were there at the time. And I was expecting it. I had to call the national team multiple times to tell them, I'm here. I've moved from Ontario Cup to, the AU, and I was training actually with the first team and with the reserves. And I didn't get a call.
Was that Paul James' team, I think, at the time? With
Yeah.
Julian and them, and Hume and
Yeah,
Atiba and...
yeah. Paul James had just taken over my group. And to be honest, since we're being honest, that's why I left. No, it wasn't. It wasn't even. I met him. I met him one time. We went to France and we played a game, and he had guys running around the field after the game and stuff. And I heard rumors and whatever. I'm not going to get into it, but I got scared out, and so I left. And I ended up going to Germany. And then he was the coach at the time, so I wasn't really. But I called him. My point is
I remember
that
the squad.
yeah. My point is that we weren't doing that at the time. Taking care of the players and finding them and making them feel important. And I think when I spoke to Marcel and I spoke to Issei and I spoke to the others, the fact that you called, even Ali Gerba, the fact that, somebody called and said, hey man, we want you, you know what I mean? Or seek him out, like Tam Nasaliwa, that meant something. Because at the time, before you did that, no one did that.
Yeah, the incident with Marcel was kind of a fluke because Holger also wanted the coaches to get some professional development.
Right.
And I said, well, okay, I will go to Ajax and I will go to PSV and I will go to, to the clubs in Holland.
Yeah.
And I'll also check on this kid.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, I went and did a bit of that with them. And yeah, it was really difficult at the time. I mean, it's not like today. It was really difficult at the time to keep track of players, to track down players, to find out how to contact them. I'm not making excuses for the coaches that were there.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get into a situation like I had David Edgar with my under 17, and I liked him a lot.
This
But
when he's at Newcastle?
yes, I had liked him a lot. And I was almost ready to go into competition when he actually came to me, and I didn't pick him on the team. But the funny thing is, I spoke to Dale Mitchell, and I said, Dale, that there's a young man, David Edgar, who Dale already knew about. I said, he should be on your under 20 team.
Right.
And he ended up actually going to Dubai, to United Arab Emirates. But it was really, really difficult to keep track of players. And it always was a money issue. It always was a money issue. Can you bring the player in? Can you get the player here? And then you're caught between finding the players and developing a team for competition.
Right.
And the national team is not really a place to develop players.
Right.
That's a club's job.
Right.
We give let's say 80, because you only allowed 18 at the time. We give 18 players an opportunity.
Right.
18 players. If we have a couple of camps, a couple of players come in and out. So let's say 23 players we give an opportunity.
Right. Yeah, With Holger, I had come back from Belgium, and in Canada, it's very difficult. It was, I don't know now, but it was when you came back, it was like being here. Like it was like you didn't know the next step because there was no professional league, you know, and so you came back here and do I rejoin? Like what happens at 23 or 21 or 19 years old at that time? You know, and I played the highest league at the time was Canadian Soccer Professional League or something like that.
Yeah, what
See,
the Lynx were in that?
no,
Toronto
it
Lynx?
was the Canadian CPSL, Canadian Professional Soccer League. Lynx was in the USL.
Yeah,
So that was
okay.
a US league, and then there's the Canadian, yeah. And we played with Hamilton, and we ended up making an all-star team to play against the national team for a camp, and in Canada. And so I went there, and for you know those games where you just have a brilliant game, like just everything goes well, your touch is amazing, every pass you make, your vision, you can see clearly, like. And I ended up second half scoring this goal where I went through about from half, and I scored against the national team. Ian was there, and Holger was the coach, and he put his arm around me afterwards, and he goes, "Who the heck?" He
Yeah,
said
yeah.
different words.
Yeah.
Who the heck are you?
His
You know?
language was
Ah.
colorful.
Germans, they just used, just swear. So he goes, "Who are you?" And I said, "Yeah, you know, I played in Belgium. I came back." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I came back. You know, this happened." And he goes, "I need to get you on the national team." I said, "Very nice meeting you, Mr. Holger. You know, appreciate it." Because I didn't believe him. You know, I was out the squad, and he said, "No, I'm serious. I'm going to call Dale." And he brought me in, and he had me eat with the men's team and everything, and then. No word of a lie. About 3 weeks later, Dale said, "Hey, we're going to we qualified for the World Cup in Qatar, I think, or wherever it was,
UAE.
UAE,
Yeah.
and we're going to bring you to Houston." And he did, and I did well. And then he brought me to some South American team, and then he told me he's going to go with the guys, you know, whatever. But Holger did that, you know, and so I know that when you say what you're saying, of course I believe you, but it's true that you guys both had the same kind of idea. And
Yeah.
that helped me get back over to Europe.
And Dale too. I think
He was nice.
he really fantastic coach, fantastic man.
Yeah.
And he really wanted to get the best players, but you were always sort of handcuffed. You know, you're always sort of handcuffed. And how I heard about you, I brought you into a January camp.
Yeah.
Those January camps we used to call our spring break training session, because most players that came in
Yeah.
were not in season. And you were in the Czech Republic?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Morgan Quarry said to me, "Oh, there's a player in the Czech Republic." So I said, "Well, bring him." You know, which
Yeah.
I said, "Bring him to this," because these camps were, for me, excellent in the sense that we brought players that hadn't been to the national team program.
Yeah.
We had games,
Yeah.
you know, and we could see them for those camps for what, 14 days, 10 days, or
Yeah, 10
whatever
days,
it was.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was really, really good for that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I mean, a lot of players that were on the fringe got an opportunity to come in and train. And we made it a relaxed sort of environment.
Right.
But we, you know, the training was twice a day, and,
Yeah.
you know, everything that it was. Sometimes only once a day, depending on the heat and
Yeah.
everything else
Yeah.
that went with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I found out about yourself, and
Yeah.
Morgan brought you in.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, I appreciated it too. I think that was the first time I actually met you, right?
Yeah, that's the first time we
That's the
met.
first time that we actually met each other. Yeah. And those camps, yeah, that's what for me it was great, because living in a place where they don't speak English at all for the most part, coming and speaking English just normal like me and you was like a dream. Like I was speaking like chopped up English at the beginning, and by the end of the camp I was speaking normal, you know, because it's hard to have a personality, you know, in a country where they just don't speak English. They speak German, they speak French, they speak Spanish, but not English,
I
right?
still have those training sessions on video, by the way, I think,
No,
from
you
those
don't.
camps.
No,
think,
you don't.
I honestly do.
Please tell me if you can.
I'll
I
do
would
some
love those.
digging, but I think I have. I know I certainly have the diaries of the training session, and Vic Mendez was our video guy, and he was very good at putting all the training sessions on disc. So if you remember the year, I might be able to find it.
Oh yeah, I know. 2008, 2007.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
January. I
We'll
remember.
try and find it.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Tell me something. Why was it that there was this period? It seemed as though, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, there was a period where there was like a revolving door of coaches. So back to those camps again. There was Holger. I have no idea why, and we're not going to, why things didn't work out with him because to me, I saw strides from before him and then with him that it felt like we were transitioning from the Scottish long to more of a civilized, different way of playing with him, I found. And then it started to progress even more and more and more. We started to come into ourselves a little bit. But to me, he started it. That's just my opinion. I don't need to be right. Um, why was there this like revolving door? Because I remember coming into the camps and seeing almost like a new coach, with the exception of you twice, uh, like over and over again. There was Frank Gallup, there was you, there was
I really
Dale.
can't answer that, like this is why, but Holga, the team had a fantastic Gold Cup.
Right.
They won the Gold Cup, and then they went in to the qualification. And the qualification for me in CONCACAF is probably harder than going to the World Cup and
Tell me
playing.
why.
In those days,
Yeah.
in particular,
Yeah.
because you had to be on these long flights, and then you get down into
In economy class.
in economy class, and then you get down into these countries that are doing everything to disrupt your day. If you have not experienced it, you don't know what we are talking about.
Yeah, I know.
But you get down there and there's 3,000 people outside your hotel room with fireworks and music and cars racing up and down, and the speaker trucks with the music, the bass is so strong that even if you put earplugs in, you can't sleep. Your bed is, vibrating. It is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And to experience it, it's different. And in those days, we didn't have the resources to send somebody before, and your hotel rooms were everybody scattered all over the hotel, and
Yeah,
they
I
do
remember that.
everything to disrupt you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, I remember every lunchtime we were on the 15th to the 18th floor, and every lunchtime the elevators would not work, and we'd walk down the stairs and eat lunch and walk back up, and by the time you walk back up, the elevators start working. I mean, it's just crazy. But anyway.
Were you around for the bags of pee
Oh yeah, of course, that's
and
normal.
the jumping on the so I was there for a game. I think you would have been there. Oh yeah, that was Martinique. No, there was another game where they put you under the rafters where the stand where the what are those called? The fanatics are, the ones that jump up
Yeah,
and
the
down and everything.
ultras.
And they make sure that you're right under there so that they go blah, 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 and you can't hear the coach talk even if he's right next to you. It's
Yeah.
super loud.
It's different.
It's different.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and then yeah, you're right. Things started to happen. Holga was released, and Frank came in, and Frank went through. Frank brought me on board as an assistant because Dale had the under 20. Dale
right.
was usually his assistant, and we went to the Gold Cup in 2005, and the team was young. The team was young, and. And then all of a sudden, I was at the World Cup 2006. I went to see the games, and somebody called me and goes, "Hey, Frank resigned." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Frank didn't call. He didn't say anything. He just resigned. He just resigned, and he went and took over the LA
David Beckham.
Galaxy. Was it the Galaxy he went
Yeah, it
to
was
from
the
there?
Galaxy.
Yeah. Oh, or was it San Jose? No, it was Galaxy. It was Galaxy.
I remember the camp. He said, "Hey, love the camp." I was scared. I thought you said that I wasn't any good. But no, did great. We're looking to maybe not this trip, but the next trip, and blah blah blah. And then as I left the interview, I was smiling. I think that was the one that Janelle was there for. I was smiling. I was like, I finally get to play with Julian, Atiba. Like I was because those guys, like especially Julian, those guys. I was like, those guys were like my creme de la creme. You know what I mean? And couldn't wait. And then as I left the interview, somebody said, "Yeah, but I think he's going to be possibly looking to go to LA Galaxy and coach David Beckham." And I was like,
I had no clue.
You had no clue?
I had no clue, and I was working with him.
Yeah.
I had no clue, and then I said, "Oh my gosh, because I really liked Frank. I liked the
Me
way he
too.
worked,
Me
and
too. Me
the only
too.
thing he would drive me crazy is he'd have me plan all this training session,
Yeah.
and then he'd come out and say, "Yeah, let's just let them play." But no, and I had no clue. And then, of course, Dale got the job,
Hmm.
and and rightly so,
Hmm.
because he had done a fantastic job. Him and Nick Dasovic with the under 20 teams, they had done great jobs.
Yeah.
But Dale couldn't take the job because we were hosting the under 20s
Yes, in Canada.
at the World Cup in
Yeah.
Canada.
Mm.
So they asked me to handle the team in the interim.
Mm.
So I went into the job in the interim, and I knew all the players. I
Right.
knew everybody. I was there with Frank, and I knew everybody. And we had a players meeting, and I told them, my objective is we as a group need to change the way people look at the team.
Hmm.
We're going to play, an attacking way and be adventurous,
Not
and we're going
scared.
to go
Mm.
and bring yourself to the team. Bring yourself to the team. The only person I had to work on was Dwayne. You know, was Dwayne, and he talks about this all the time. And I had introduced the 4-3-3 to the team because I was trying to find a way to get the best players on the pitch.
Right.
So I called Nashi.
Nash. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, "Listen, I want you at the national team," and blah, blah, blah. He goes, "Me?" I said, "Yeah," because he was out of the picture.
Right.
So I brought him back, and Richie Hastings.
Yeah.
Richard
That's
Hastings.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I had some interesting conversations because I said to Richard Hastings, "I need you." Gabe Gervais and somebody
I
else,
remember these names. Yeah.
Redda, both got injured in camp.
Marco.
Yeah, Marco Redda,
Wow.
both got injured in camp.
Yeah.
So I said to Richard Hastings, I go, "You're going to have to play center back." He goes, "Me? I'm a left back." I said, "Well, Richard, if you don't play it, I already have a left back, in Ante Jazic.
Yeah.
You're not going to play." He goes, "Okay, I'll be the center back." and then I tried to get the best players on the team. So I had a midfield I had Nashi as the holding mid, and Nashi said to me, "I've never won a tackle in my life." I go, "No, I'm using you as a playmaker
Distributor, first
behind Julian and Atiba so they can play higher up the
Yeah.
pitch."
Yeah.
And then I had Patrice.
Bernier.
What do you do with Patrice?
Yeah.
So I said to Patrice, "I need you to do a job for me. I need you to play on the right." He goes, "Whatever you want." He was unbelievable. He
Wow.
said, "Whatever you want." So he actually played on the right side.
But he's normally a defensive midfielder, is he?
He's a midfielder.
Yeah.
He can play the defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
He's extremely creative. And I knew Patrice because he went with us with that Ali Gaba, the 50 team too.
Yeah.
But anyway, I said, "I want you to play on the right side, but not as a wide sort of winger. Play inside a bit because Dwayne is not going to do any defending."
Right.
Now I had to talk to Dwayne to play on the left because Ali Gaba and Rob Friend were my strikers,
big
and
guys.
only one can play.
Yeah.
Rob Friend was getting married, so he could only play the first 2 games of the tournament.
Wow.
And I had a poolside in Florida with Dwayne. And Dwayne wanted to be the 10. So I had to convince Dwayne to play on the left.
Yeah.
So I said, "Dwayne, listen, this is my plan. I have a T-ba, ba, 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 ba. We're going to play on one side of the pitch, isolate you one-on-one, get you the ball, you do your thing, we're going to kill." But from the time he heard he was going to get a lot of the ball, I think that's what sold him, And
Yeah.
he had a fantastic
He did.
tournament.
I remember watching.
Actually, the whole team had a fantastic tournament.
Yeah.
And Patrice was so disciplined, so unbelievable person, but unbelievable player. And it was fortunate. We won. We started to win games, and we went to the semi-final, and it was great. It was great.
That was the one where they called the T-ball offside, was it?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the
Right.
one. And Julian took that horrific tackle where he
Toppled over and
he
almost
spun
broke
up
his
in
neck.
the air, and there was no cards. Eventually, Bocanegra got sent off, I think. But
What is that though? You think that's just a what is that? I always felt like if Canada always got the raw end of the stick? Like,
I'll tell you a story about that, and I don't know if I've mentioned this, and I shouldn't really because the person has passed away now. But after the game, I felt not for myself, but for the players.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, it's one of those games the U.S. could have won, but once we got more confident, we could have won. Okay, U.S. had Donovan had an excellent chance that he threw away, and anyway. But we're sitting in the media room, Chuck Blazer. Chuck Blazer was in the media room,
yeah,
waiting room.
right,
Just both of us alone, you know. CNN was showing the tackle on Julian
yeah,
and the non offside,
right,
the non offside,
right,
because Gooch was the one who tried to head the ball back to the keeper and Atiba picked it off,
right.
you know. So I said, Mr. Blazer, this is an embarrassment, you know. He said, Stephen, Canada will not be in another final of the Gold Cup. The last time you all were in the final of the Gold Cup, we had 600 people in the stand. Something to that effect. Now, he
Right.
said it jokingly,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
but it made me think maybe we were not going to get any
Yeah,
further than a
yeah,
semi-final.
yeah.
But yeah, look, and then of course Dale took over the team,
Mm-hmm.
and things started to fumble along. Rosinski got injured in the game in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
He was not available to us until Mexico, the return game from Mexico.
Yeah.
You know, we had some. It's football, and we had some problems. And unfortunately for Dale, I thought they should have given him
Longer.
the next Gold Cup at least to see where the team was at,
Yeah.
because the team was now getting older, you know, and they decided they didn't want Dale, and then I got the job. So yeah, there was a revolving door.
How did you find out that you had the job? Like, why did they even, did you find out why they went with you and not Dale, to continue on with Dale?
No, I didn't, and I got the message. I called Dale, and I remember clearly because I was I was driving from. I was technical director of the country at the time, and I was driving from Ottawa to Montreal, or being driven. And I got the call that Dale was going to be out, and I was stunned because he did such a good job with the under-20s. You know, okay, the qualification did not go the way it should have gone, but some you know, some players went to the media, and I didn't like that. You know, some players went to the media, and you know, they said some things that maybe they regret saying now. And you know, Canada's soccer made a decision. This is
Right.
football.
Right.
We know how it goes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, and then I found out that they wanted to put me in charge, and you know, some of the players, they said, hey, you should take it. But it was now going on 4 years from the 2007.
Yeah.
It was the end of 2010 that I got put in charge. So now the players are getting older.
Yeah.
you
Transition
know?
time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, so here you are, right? All of a sudden, right? You're head of Canadian football, really, in terms of being the coach, right? And that responsibility, you know, I've always said that as the women and men, women obviously have been doing well. Right?
Fantastic.
So,
Yeah.
like it's almost like they didn't have that period that we went through. You know, just like it's like they caught on quick, and then they've always been going to these World Cups and stuff. So that's without saying. But for us, it's always been a matter of, as the national team is, so is your respect level on the international forum
Sure.
as a player. You
Sure.
know, when you say that you're a Canadian, how your national team does has a lot to do with how much they respect you from the beginning. And, you know, I found that you can get a player from Iceland who would get more respect than a Canadian, not because they're better, because you could prove that, obviously, like other people have, right? But they usually look at the national team as indication as to what the national team, the nation can offer. because usually the best players play for the national team. You're taking over this job now in a transitional period where you have this responsibility of advertising Canada to the rest of the world and what we can achieve, but it's a transition period now. So you're put in a weird predicament now where you have to take over this team where you have older players who you know, but possibly the reliability of an older player is not as easy to kind of.
Well, it wasn't quite that way when we first started. I had brought some players along when I was in the interim, like you say. I had brought some younger players, David Edgar. I had brought into the squad, and I even brought Piet into the team, and Bohan. I brought into the team.
Did you hear him talk about you?
No, I didn't. People told me, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had those players.
How'd you find him?
Wow, that's a good one. Somebody told me that there was a goalkeeper from Ontario that was of Serbian descent, and he was interested in playing for Canada. So I got hold of him, and him and his father and myself, we met in Texas. What's it call it? That's Mex-Tex restaurant. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We went to the restaurant, and his father and him and his father was fantastic. He said, "Listen, Canada gave me a life, and my son, he has these qualities, and blah blah blah." And I was more interested at the time to listen to Bohan and get a feel for how much but he had such enthusiasm, such passion, And I said to myself, I would like to have played with this guy, because he had this.
His personality.
He was fantastic.
I knew him when he was younger. So.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And he told me, I'm good with my feet, and he was confident, know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I got him, and anyway, this was the time period, Thomas was gone, but things started to falter. We started off beautifully in qualifying, really well, and we got to a game against Honduras in Toronto, and we were all over them. Honestly, we were all over them. In the last 10 minutes of the game, we should have scored 3. They had 2 shots the entire game.
No.
And for some reason, people who would normally put away chances were missing. It was 0-0 at the end. If we had won that game, we'd have been in the hex. Because we had 2 games to play against Panama and 1 to play against Honduras. We need 1 point, But anyway, things started to falter. And Tony Fonseca and myself and the staff, Paul Dola and all of us, we started to see things happening. Ali Gerber was out. Well, Rosinski was out from the beginning, but Ali Gerber was out. Rob Friend did his Achilles. Josh Simpson broke his leg.
Oh, that was the year.
Patrice Bernier broke his leg, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't have the players coming through. Regardless of if you think it's an excuse or not, this is the reality.
Yeah.
We did not have the players coming through. It was as simple as that. And things started to happen. And I remember after the 0-0, Atiba walked straight over to me. He was with Kevin McKenna. Both of them walked up to me and they said, "I really hope this doesn't come back to haunt us." Those were the exact words. And so said, so done.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a thing you have to deal with as a coach, and you have to learn from it.
Yeah.
You have to learn from it, and unfortunately, it did not go well. And I will never blame the players.
Right.
They did everything they could. They did everything they could, and on that famous day in Honduras, it really began to fall apart. People were sick. Some couldn't play. Ante Jazic couldn't play. you know, things just, well, Dwayne got injured in the Panama, 20 minutes into the Panama game, Dwayne got injured and he was out. And the funny thing is, our plan was to play Dwayne as the striker in the Honduras game.
Right.
That was our plan, just to show something different.
Yeah.
And anyway, it didn't work out.
Yeah, and it didn't
Yeah.
work out. So you were there for how long?
Till 2012, 2 years.
2012.
Just 2 years
yeah.
at the.
Yeah, that was the year that
at
Josh. I remember when
at the
Josh
help.
broke that horrific injury. And I
Yeah, it
remember
was,
that.
it was, it was crazy.
And he was coming off such a fantastic 2 seasons there in Turkey, where I was like, "This is Josh. Wow." He was scoring goals. He was up and
Yeah,
down.
he was in Switzerland. He was flying.
Oh yeah, then he went to then he went to
he
Old
was
Boys.
flying. He was
Yeah.
flying.
Yeah.
And I remember because we were in the Gold Cup 2009, I think it was. We were playing Jamaica, and I brought him on, and he absolutely destroyed them. And Ali scored that volley, and
Yeah.
we won the game.
Yeah. That was good times, man.
Eh?
That was good times.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I mean, 2009. I personally think we were given a raw deal when Stolteri was called for a penalty against Honduras again. He was called for a penalty that really was not even close. The guy tried a bicycle kick. It went 50 yards over the
So
bar.
he undercut him. Yeah.
And they called a penalty, and they won 1-0.
Right.
And that was a heartbreaker. That was really a heartbreaker.
Yeah.
You know.
So how did you so obviously you exit the scene for the national team. How did you get on with now the Trinidadian national team?
But that was a weird one. Honestly, that was a weird one because I'd always wanted to give back something to Trinidad and Tobago somehow.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm out of the scene in Canada. But the under-17 coach Sean Fleming, who used to be my assistant as well,
yeah.
he called me and he said, "Look, I need a scout in Panama. I need somebody to scout in Panama." And he had to get permission from the CSA for me to be the scout and be visible around the national program, which to me was crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's another story. And and anyway, I said, "Look, Sean, I'm more than willing to do it." And Tony Fonseca was the technical director, and Tony approved it. Basically, Sean had me there, and I'm in Panama, and we were playing Trinidad and Tobago. Right, and I had scouted them and Jamaica and the teams that we have to play. So I was being scouted, and we had to play Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm in my hotel room, and I get a phone call, and it said Stephen Hart. Yes, boom, boom, boom. This is the Trinidad and Tobago Football Federation. Sheldon Phillips, who his father was a legend in Trinidad and Tobago. We are in the hotel up the beach from where you all are staying. Can we have a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning? So I said, yeah, sure. Can I ask what's this about? And he goes, I want to have a discussion with you. Anyway, and we had this discussion, and they said, we want you to coach the Trinidad and Tobago national team.
What?
Just that was it. That was it. I walked up the beach at 7:45 in the morning and met with him. He was the general secretary.
Yeah.
And Raymond Timke was the president. Mr. Timke was supposed to show up in the meeting. He never did. I just had the meeting with Sheldon Phillips there. And he
So you had no idea really that they were going to offer you that. You just went up, have the meeting.
No,
and then...
they were headhunting at the time, and what I said to them because I knew one of the guys that was in charge in Trinidad, because they had that dual coaching role thing. So I said, listen, first to begin, I'm uncomfortable with this discussion because you have a coach in place, right? But should you need a coach? Yes, I am interested. That's how the conversation went.
Right.
I didn't say I want the job.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I said, so when they started, the talk started heating up, and we're going to change the code and blah, blah, blah. I called the guy from Trinidad and Tobago. I called him. And I said, listen, this is happening. Behind your back, I don't know if you know, but this is happening. But I want you to know that if it happens, and I have the job, I want you as my assistant. Because I knew him.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And he said, Stephen, if it's you, I will do it. That's what he said. He said, if it's you, I will do it. And I said, I want to talk to you about the staff and blah 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 blah. All of that. Should this occur,
Right.
and it occurred.
Wow. And so all of a sudden, you're the Trinidad national team coach.
Yeah.
What was different about them and us? Because obviously we're in the same CONCACAF. So
Yeah. Well,
what's the difference between the two? Because
what was
obviously, other than climate,
what was different? There was a lot of things different.
which one had more structure?
Canada soccer.
Really?
Yes.
At that time?
That just goes to show.
Yeah.
That just goes to show.
Yeah.
But what the first thing I noticed about Trinidad and Tobago when I got there is I was now Canadian. That's what the media
Wow.
said.
Yeah.
That's what the media said. Who is this guy? He's a Canadian and blah, blah, blah. Even though I had been back to Trinidad and Tobago almost for 1 month, every December from
Yeah.
the time I left.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just didn't, you know me, I didn't make myself,
No.
I'm here. And I used to go to the games, be quiet, look at football, go visit my friends. And I spent most of my time in Tobago, which is a very special place for me because that's where my mother and father were, you know?
Right.
And they were saying, oh, this Canadian and this and that, and they lambasted me. Immediately, there was way more media attention than in Canada. Way more,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And there was also way more of people telling you what to do. You couldn't go to the grocery store without a grandmother telling you why so and so is playing. So there was far more interest in the
Right.
national team
Yeah.
than there was with Canada.
Right.
But I'll tell you one thing that I noticed too. The players, even though some of them were playing at the top level, when they came back to Trinidad and Tobago, they seldom complained. The pitch could be bad. Sometimes there would be no Gatorade for them to drink. They seldom complained. They would come and speak to you. The most senior player will come and say, Coach, we need this or we need that or whatever. But the players loved just being that national team, that atmosphere, that environment.
Yeah.
They loved it. They loved it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little more indisciplined in terms of.
Is it because they're back home and because it's Trinidad?
Well,
the
yeah,
discipline was hard?
there were quite a few of them that came back home because they would get to see friends and family. They were a little more indisciplined. I would let things slide,
Right.
as I did with you, with a lot of
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah.
You can't confine people to a hotel, and yes, you have your meetings, yes, you have your time, and getting towards the nitty gritty of things. If it was an exhibition game or whatever,
Yeah.
But once you started to get to the nitty gritty of the game and the training and stuff, when you first come back, have a little time for yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, training, you don't mess about with that. There's no excuse,
Right.
no compromise,
No. Yeah.
But they were a little more in this. They tried to get away with things that weren't really, not for professional.
Right. Exactly.
And a lot of the players didn't have that professionalism. The ones who were abroad and they were more or less very professional, but the local professional players, they were more management necessary.
So how'd you like it? I mean, obviously, with the Canadian national team, you have probably at this time a lot more people that are in Europe. I'm assuming. Am I assuming wrong there? In terms of the clubs that they're playing for, a lot of them are in Europe.
When I had them?
With the Canadian national team versus the Trinidad national team, like what percentage would you say are playing abroad
No,
in
it
Europe
was probably,
versus?
when I first took over the Trinidad national team, the team was 50-50, split down the middle. Local players and foreign-based
Right. And that's your
players.
best squad.
That was
Your
the
best squad was 50-50.
50-50.
I would say with Canada, your best squad would be a little bit more than 50-50 in terms of being
Oh,
abroad.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
what I meant.
For sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what was it like then dealing with that, right? Like this is your best squad is a 50-50 split between locals who obviously probably, life is real to them versus people who are abroad and the professional football game is their life.
Yeah, the ones who were at home in Trinidad and Tobago were surviving. Some of the clubs took advantage of them. But saying that, it was their only means of making some money.
So
You
it's
know
still
what
a
I mean?
job.
So yeah, it's a job.
Yeah.
Like everybody in Trinidad and Tobago, you're trying to make ends meet. You're trying to eat, and I respected them for that.
Right.
You know, I respected them because I saw the high. I seldom missed a game in Trinidad and Tobago in league. I went to both the first and what would be considered the second division. I went to as many games as I can see.
Right.
You know, and you look at things and you look at and the coaches themselves and the administration themselves with the clubs are probably doing their best. I wasn't in the club, so I don't know what they had to deal with, but
Right.
I would say they were trying to do their best.
Right.
You know, but the presentation of things, the way some of the teams were playing. It was difficult environments because players could get away with things they wouldn't get away with in terms of playing on the field.
Right.
You know, the first thing I noticed was from back line to back line was about 60 meters. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
You know, the compactness, the pressing.
Yeah.
So a few teams did it really well. Believe me, they played really well. But there were a few things, and the indiscipline defensively, and to stick to your role tactically was different. There was
Yeah.
a lot more freedom for players to do what they want, especially the good ones. They got away with bad habits.
Okay, so obviously, you know, you were there for a while with the Trinidad national team. Obviously, you know, did you ever explain why it ever came to an end, or why you chose to leave, or
Well,
why you guys?
that was the bizarre part because we qualified for the Hex. Right?
That's hard to do.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's hard to do. We qualified for the Hex. You know, we beat Guatemala, whatever. We qualified for the Hex. And I got a phone call from a board member after we qualified from the Hex. They had a local election and a new president came in. And I got a phone call from a board member and said, "What the hell's going on?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, you know, there's a fire Stephen Hart mandate, not mandate, what do you call it?
Petition kind of thing?
Well,
Like,
the president wanted his own people in, basically, and, you know, fire Stephen Hart. And I said, "Listen, I know nothing about this. We've just qualified for the Hex.
Yeah.
I know nothing about this." He goes, "Well, anyway, this is the talk in the boardroom. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's not. But we started off the Hex. We had, you have 10 games to play, and 2 games in, I'm fired. You know,
Just like that.
2 games in,
Just like that.
I'm fired. Yeah.
So there's no.
But I knew
as
it
a-
was coming.
Yeah, but as a
I
coach,
knew it
though.
was coming. I knew it was coming because things started to go. What is necessary for you to perform, done by the administration, and it's the same. It's the same thing when it comes. Canada tried their best. You know, they gave us a chartered plane to, you know, to go to Honduras. I mean, we didn't charter in all the other games, but to go to Honduras we did, and you know, little things like that. But things began to. So the administration of the team was taken away from the manager. It was now being done by the office. Players were flying 5 stops to get home to play you know, a game in the Hex.
Yeah.
You're making 5 stops to. You know, they made the players' life, because what we did basically was tell the players, what's your best flight? Because we don't know if a player that plays in Belgium is playing in Ghent or if he's playing in
Anderlecht,
yeah,
wherever,
exactly. So give us your best flight and we would get you home, you know? And we'd never had enough money. So I flew home a player from Belgium. I'll give you an example. I flew home a player from Belgium. The ticket costs almost $3,000 US, and we don't have money to bring another player. So anyway, his flight was now to fly out of Florida, because that's where we were going to play the game against the US.
Yeah.
Okay, we had already qualified, so we had a nothing game to play against the US.
Right.
There was huge celebration with the team before we qualified, but he got a red card, right? To change his ticket would be another $3,500 US on top of the 3,000 we already spent.
Wow. Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
And we don't have money. So we took him to Florida
Yeah.
because that's where his flight was from.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they came down on me so hard for $3,000 US. Why would you take a player and blah, blah, blah? And I said, but we have no money. You told me you have no money to fly the player.
Yeah.
Right? So we'd have to buy a brand new ticket. No, that's not acceptable, blah, 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 blah. And things started to happen because the players started to get a sense that I was not going to be around. So they started to break curfew. They started, things started to happen that you knew the writing was on the wall.
Right.
It's always this
Lost
way.
control. Yeah.
It's always this way.
Right.
Yeah. And it wasn't just, it was some key players. And I had a chat with them. I said, listen, if you guys talk to me, there are certain things that you can and I would prefer you don't do. Oh, we're sorry, coach. Never going to happen again. And one of them did it again.
Right.
So the players went on strike. There was a number of things starting to happen that was disrupting the harmony and the group.
Right.
Because the group was committed to China and get China to qualify for the World Cup.
Right.
They were committed. They had not been paid for. They had not been paid for 7-8 games. It was madness. The staff had not been paid. We were basically doing it for the love of the game.
And the thing about not being paid, it's not necessary. Some, yes, it's about the money because that, income. But it's about the respect level of this is what we agreed. And it seems as though you're not really appreciating us. So we agreed on this. And I'm going to play 1 game, 2 games, 3 games for you and for the country, despite, not being paid. And you're going to make it go to 8-game night. Like, at this point now, we're being abused. And this gets in your mind when you're performing.
For me, it's disrespect. This is our job. This is how we feed our families.
Yeah.
And there were some people in Trinidad and Tobago that were saying, well, the players should represent the country for free. You understand? And why? They're representing the country. And I'm thinking, you got an entire parliament that's representing the country. They're all paid.
Very well.
They're all paid. So why does an athlete not have to be paid?
Yeah.
Because they're representing the country. How many people would leave their job, right, and say, listen, we have a littering problem. Let's clean up the entire country. I'm going to take 2 months off from work, not being paid, and I'm going to help clean. They're not going to do that.
No.
So why should an athlete not be paid for what they do as their profession?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it to me, it was heartbreaking to
Yeah.
treat people this way. And there were a lot of players that depend on that to feed their family.
Okay, so what do we think about what's going on now? Like with this whole situation with pay and the contracts with this and that and everything else. How do you feel? Like, you see both sides, obviously. You see, I'm talking about the situation with the national team and all of their rights and stuff like this being owned by what's the official name of the people that own it?
CBS?
CBS. Yeah, I always say CBS because I'm thinking
Or
the CBS.
CSB.
Yeah. That's a difficult situation, right? Because as a player, you just qualified for the World Cup, you're all excited, and now you're hit with a situation with this off-field stuff that, again, can creep into the dynamics of the team, even the coaching.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it, to be honest with you. And I'm not ducking the question. I don't know enough about the situation.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me who's sitting down on the outside, right, the first question I would ask is, why was this negotiation not done before we qualified for the World Cup? So I know with my group, a negotiation was done. Should we qualify for the World Cup? Boom, 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 boom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is what we want.
Right.
Should we qualify for the World Cup? Right. Should we qualify for the Hex? Boom, 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 boom. This is what we want. Mm-hmm. So my question is, why was this not done before? So that's why I say I don't know enough about it. Mm-hmm. Because if it was not done before, and this is just somebody from the outside looking in. I don't mean this in a disrespectful way,
Right.
but if it was not done before, then maybe in the back of your mind you didn't think you were going to
To make
qualify
it.
for the World Cup.
Right.
You understand what I mean? But I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what was there, so it's unfair for me to
Yeah.
talk about something I really don't know about.
So how did you feel about this World Cup? Right? Obviously, on a personal note, for someone who prided myself on being Canadian everywhere I went, in Europe and stuff, I always, I was approached, by another national team, and it was never really a consideration other than frustration, because I wanted to play for Canada so bad. And you know, when we qualified, and I saw it was like this momentum building. You hear about Jonathan David, in Ghent. I heard about him when I was doing a podcast for someone, and you hear about these little names coming up, and where are they playing? Wow, they're playing there. The leading goal scorer here, and it just started to build slowly. We started, our group and our team started to build. And then as we went through the qualification phase, you saw that, whoa, we're getting really close here. This is a little bit different than before. And I see, it seems like the association is backing them a little bit more, and I just feel this swell of enthusiasm for the belief that we can. And then when we qualified, in my heart, there was two things that were happening. It was like I dated a girl who I really loved, but it didn't work out. But she ended up marrying the love of her life. It was this feeling of, I'm not there with you, but I'm happy that you have that. But I really wanted that with you. It was that I don't know if that's a good.
It's fun.
If
It's great,
Yeah.
actually. You should write. You should write some poetry.
But that's what it felt like. I was enthusiastic. I was happy for them. And then there was that other side that said, I know we all are bricks in this house, but sometimes it sucks when you're the brick that is at the bottom that the other brick is on. Because we went through, the crapper sometimes, where, we didn't have the funding, we didn't have this, we didn't have that, we didn't have all that stuff. And it does not take away from any of the work that those guys did and all the games that they played and how well they played and what they've done in the club. None of that. It's just that the stories that we have, that Julian has, and I think that Jonathan de Guzman probably would have played for a team like this.
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's what I mean.
Times, right?
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
It's hard to say that because, I could feel for the Dwaynes and the Alis and yourself and everybody that went through. I mean, we were never allowed to bring more than 18 players into camp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Our budget was less than $1 million for the entire year, and that included paying people's salaries and the players, and all the players took a pay cut in order for us to play games.
I remember we were in Florida and we were getting massage, and I remember Julian, he wasn't there, and so I remember one of the massage guys says, I said, what's our budget? What's our budget? And he goes, I don't know, about $1 million. He said, let me put it to you this way. Julian de Guzman makes more than our whole national system.
Well, it wasn't. I don't think it was quite $1 million. And I remember,
including the woman.
I wanted to have. It was including the youth teams.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think. I wanted to have a chiropractor on board, and they said, "Well, okay, you have to cut one of your staff." So I had one physiotherapist. Then I managed to get 2 physiotherapists, and they were doing their best. It was a time when you were making do with what you had. It's no different than a mother trying to feed some children, and you just don't have. You have to make do.
Yeah, and that's how I came to grips with, okay, I still feel like I'm a part of it because we all had our part to play. If it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for Dale, if it wasn't for Ray, if it wasn't Holger, if it wasn't for the progress, then they wouldn't have got to that point. And so we're all a part of this big, celebration of, yay, at least we've done this thing.
And you have to credit a lot of the fans for that, because they brought the pressure on the association as well. Because before, they didn't really bring their... I mean, I remember when we started to do, in my time, we started to do well. BMO Stadium was beginning to fill up. Before people
Yeah.
never used to come out,
Yeah.
and we would have more Jamaicans and more Costa Ricans in the stands
Yeah.
than Canadian fans. So the Canadian fans had a lot to do with all of this.
Yeah.
And to get back to the present team,
Mm-hmm.
at one time I was worried because it didn't look like we would get the opportunity to qualify because
Mm-hmm.
it was this crazy new system. I don't know if you remember. And then because of COVID, they added 2 teams. Now I might be wrong with all of this, but it really looked like we were in danger at one point of qualifying because you had to be in a certain ranking, and we were
Oh,
not in that ranking. I
right.
don't know if I'm right. So
Okay.
I don't know if I'm right. But anyway, I think they added 2 teams and we got in, right? We got in, and now we were this special generation of players, and the team began to reflect that generation of a beautiful midfield and an attacking team and players playing at the top level. And all credit to John and the coaching staff with the details they put into everything. You look at it and you say, wow, he's bringing 26 players into camp. He has. You're thinking, wow, no more eight-a-side
Yeah.
trying to prepare for a qualification game.
Yeah.
He has a full 11, a training 11,
Yeah.
and you look at that, but you're saying, yeah, it's being done right.
Right.
It's being done right. And all the things, Dale and Holger and everybody, talked about, this is what we need to do, was being done.
Done. Yeah.
It was being done. And the players bought into it. And as I said, was a special generation and of players with depth.
Yep.
Not only a special generation of players, with a lot of depth.
Yeah.
You know?
When you look at now, okay, let's talk about what do we think went wrong there. So this World Cup is a special. This is a different World Cup. I've watched them all since I was young. This one is different. I mean, some of the same characters are in it. Like you have your Brazils, you have your friends. Generally, you always have the same 8. Take 2 out and then subtract or whatever. But this is a little bit different. Let's look at the first game, right, with Belgium. I felt as though when they came out the gate, this group here seems to have an audacity to challenge the status quo. The way how they came out the gate with Belgium, it was as if, as an onlooker, as someone who, I've been on field with the national team where we gave way too much respect to the other team. Like, even when we were better, we just fear of goals in the back of our net. When they came out the gate with Belgium in this World Cup that just passed, it's still going on now. The way how they moved forward, kept possession in their half, was something that I wasn't ready to. I didn't think that they would be handling them that way. That we are equals because we're here. That's what I felt when I saw it.
Yeah.
The way how they were attacking, the way how they were taking their chances, missing chances, whatever, but the way how they kept possession in tight, like I remember some of the training sessions that you did where, play into the pressure, but play out, have your outlet to kind of keep the ball and stuff. That was great when I saw them, and I was very proud of them that first game. Even when they lost and they had so many chances to score, I was mad at the way how Belgium scored. Just the simplicity of, the long ball and just drop off, that type of thing. But
I look at it different. I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
This World Cup remind me a lot of 2002, where
Brazil?
we had all those nations upsetting France out in the first round, Argentina out in the group stage, Portugal out in the group stage. It was very similar.
Okay.
And then we had these Japans,
ruining parties.
Turkey and
Yeah.
these teams,
Yeah.
going to the 16 and the 8 or whatever. But okay, so Canada entered the game, and in the first game, I think, listen, that goal that scored on us with Belgium, because we approached the game the way I felt we should approach the game. What is our strength? Our strength is our attack, our pace. We have a lot of pace. Belgium are an aging team, especially at the back. We should go at them. Play on the front foot, play them.
Japan
Okay?
showed that in that previous game.
Eh?
Yeah, Japan showed that in that previous game when they lost to Japan. Belgium lost to
In the
coming into the World Cup.
coming into the World Cup, yeah. But and I'll get to that. But I think the goal scored on us didn't give credit to the quality of the pass, the quality of the first touch, and the quality of the second touch, which was the goal. I think sometime, you remember World Cup 98,
Yeah.
when De Boer hit that ball to Dennis Bergkamp, must have been 70-yard pass.
Against Argentina.
Bergkamp brought it down with one touch and lifted it over Ayala and finished. I think not enough credit was given to the pass, the touch, and the goal.
Right.
Everybody was like, that was shit defending. And the bottom line was the timing of the run, the beauty of the pass, and they finished. And the thing is, okay, what do you expect? You're playing the second team in the world. You think they're not going to get chances? This is how I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
And I was proud of the way Canada played.
Right.
They played with no fear, and we could have, our old sort of nemesis of not being able to finish came back to haunt us.
Right.
Because that's all it was.
Yeah.
The final balls were there. The finishing was just not there. We missed the penalty.
Yeah.
So, okay, we lost in the World Cup with players that only one player was born the last time we were in a World Cup. So I didn't see it the way other people saw it.
Right.
Okay? Because I know how difficult it is to coach, and I'm not going to be criticizing somebody for a game that they played very well. They outplayed Belgium.
They did.
They should have won the game.
Yes.
Okay? Yeah. But football is a lie. You can play well and lose, and you can play poorly and win. It's the nature of football.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think the only thing was they played so well that to be unlocked with one good ball. And it was a good ball. It was perfect timing. I mean, it took two bounces and he put it in the back of the net, really, at the end of the day. Like, his run was great in between, two players. It was just that if it was a masterfully, bang, 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 like Argentina in 98 with 24 passes in a row or something like that, and they unlocked you and they scored, that was great play. But I think it was just that it was the simplicity of football sometimes. It's not the tiki-taka all the time. It's what works. And they did what worked at that time. And that just hurt because it seemed so simple after all that hard work.
Listen, we did our homework. We scouted Belgium. We knew they were old and slow at the back. You think they didn't scout us as well? Come on, man. Come on. The beauty of the pass.
Yeah.
And maybe you could have said, hey, we should have had pressure on that ball. And but that's after the fact.
Yeah.
We lost the game.
Yeah.
We played well. And it gave us the confidence. Actually, what that game did? Was show everybody else how to play against Belgium.
It's true.
That's what it did.
It's true.
It showed everybody else how to play against Belgium.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
then the next game we went in against one of the most methodical teams in football.
Croatia, man.
The most methodical teams in football. And again, we played to our strengths. We were brave. And yes, mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. And at that level, against that kind of team, right? Especially with the midfield they had. And us, and as I said, it's easy to coach after. They ever say it in Brazil, everybody could coach on Monday. Right? The game played Saturday or Sunday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, our midfield got stretched because we were throwing forward the fullbacks. And Atiba had too much ground to cover. It's a lot of ground to cover against three of the best midfielders in world football.
Yeah.
In world football, come on. And Croatia watched us, and they struggled to adjust in the first few minutes, but they always knew the game is played in the second half. That's football. They will be patient and methodical enough to know that we're going to make mistakes, and they punished it. They punished it.
And sometimes I think in the middle of the park, when you're standing in the gap, so like you discover the game first, 10 minutes sometimes, it's a chess match, right? To see, because you scouted already, so you kind of, but then you start to notice patterns in passes, especially in the midfield. You start to notice, okay, they're going to boom, 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 boom. This person likes to check here. And then all of a sudden the game slows down and now you're starting to see patterns. And with those three guys in the middle, with our two guys in the middle, I think that just because of their brilliance and the high level that they've been playing forever, they just started to notice the little gaps and when to step in. And once you figure that out at that level with those guys and that technique, I think that's when they started to play chess.
Yeah, and Estacio, he's not 100%. He's trying to join the attack and also trying to help Atiba. It's impossible. And look, the bottom line is, and if I have to say anything, because there was a lot of criticism and I don't agree with it, but if I was to say anything is, once they scored the tying goal, maybe we should have dropped a little bit, consolidated, caught ourselves, rest a little bit, let them play in front of us, and then take the game again.
On a counter.
But I think the early goal we scored worked against us, because it's one of those, hey, we can play with these guys, we can get a result here, and we just threw ourselves forward. We threw ourselves forward.
But we did a little bit much, and then obviously with the Morocco thing, I think look at them now.
Well, look, I was on radio, one of the radio stations here, morning show or whatever, and I said before the game that I think Morocco is one of the better teams I've seen in the tournament. And they said, but they're going to play Canada. It didn't go over very well, but I was just being realistic.
Yeah.
Morocco, for me, is one of the most balanced teams I've seen. And in they have a midfielder, Arabat. The guy, he must be built by Rolls-Royce. I mean, his engine is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have a lot of pace, and they were going to be a difficult team, because it was the only team in the group that probably could have matched us physically. You know?
They're physical.
Oh, they can run.
Yeah.
They are quick, they are technical, they are tricky, they could wiggle out of situations. It was always going to be a difficult game.
Yeah, and look what they've done now with Spain.
But that being said, we now have a World Cup under our belt. The coaching staff have a World Cup under their belt, right? And we don't have to qualify for the next one, which is actually going to be the most difficult thing in going into the World Cup.
Right.
Not having to qualify. It hurts almost every host team, not having to qualify.
Explain why.
Well, you don't have the competition. You don't have that, we have to win, we have to qualify, we have to be prepared, we have to mentally be strong. You're going to play exhibition games now. Okay, we have Nations League, but who are we going to draw in the Nations League? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a big difference. Look at France in the Nation League is struggling along, and, so is Croatia, and then they come to the World Cup and they're flying.
Right.
You know what I mean? They have the depth and the strength to do those sort of things.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Who do you have for this World Cup?
Well, I said to a friend of mine, a Brazil-Portugal final would be nice. And this was before they even reached to this stage.
Right.
But I think France are an excellent team. I think they have one of the best midfields in the business. And of course, they have a very special player.
I can't figure him out, man.
He's a special player. He's a special. All things being equal in football, you need that special player that can change the game. And Brazil has it, France has it, Portugal has it, and Portugal have a number of them.
Right.
They have a number of them. Brazil have a number of them. France, arguably, have the two best fullbacks in the game, a beautiful midfield, and a very special player. And then you have England. I know I'm not answering your question, but then you have England. If their selection is right, they have a lot of firepower.
Right.
A lot of firepower.
This one's a throw-up for me. For me, the one that I see, Brazil is dangerous when they're confident. and when they're happy. That's the only thing I can say. Because every single one of those teams that you said have a legitimate chance of winning against each other, really. Because even look at Portugal yesterday, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
what happened there with that youngster that came on,
special
21 years old?
performance.
Three
But
goals?
that's one of these things. Look, this is my only chance. I've got one of the biggest players in the history of the game, sitting
Sitting
on the
down.
bench because of me. I better make this count.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
you know. There's a
So,
saying in the military, in the Navy SEALs, don't depend on second chances. That's what he did.
yeah, he took advantage of it.
Take
And I'm
advantage.
sure people are going to be knocking on the door for him. So, speaking of knocking on the door for him, what's next for you? I mean, we didn't even speak about being in the Canadian Premier League because we've been talking forever. But I mean, inaugural year, here you are, former national team coach for two different national teams, and then you came in, originally when I heard about the Canadian Premier League and I heard the backing, it was going to be an actual league that for us, by us, owners by us, that type of thing. And then I heard that you were a coach. I said, now it's legit. Like I was very happy to hear that you decided to take on,
Yeah.
this venture.
Well, it's Halifax, right?
Yes, Halifax.
It's Halifax. So, yeah, it was important. It's a difficult environment because you were coming into a situation where you basically had established organizations in one form or the other, and then you had people starting from scratch, of which we were one. And the first year had so much regulation on how you can get a player. So if the player was from Ontario and you had to wait until the teams in Ontario said they didn't want the player for you to get the player, that sort of thing. And that
Can you
that made
explain
it
why?
difficult.
Like, what was the reason?
I think it was to just create a balance, just to create a balance. So Winnipeg and Halifax was able to have the Quebec market, so to speak. And anyway, it was a difficult time period, and in the first year, and people don't know how difficult that was. That was really strange, and there's a lot of the learning curve because everybody is trying to make ends meet in the club, and we were waking up we're the most traveled team. We have to fly. We were waking up 3 o'clock in the morning to take flights, and of course players are trying to get rest on the plane. So it was difficult.
Yeah.
The second year we went to the final. After coming dead last, we went to the final, and we all felt the team should have been rebuilt then, but COVID hit. And we made what I think would probably arguably been not the right decision, but was the decision to make at the time, because nobody knew what was happening with COVID.
Right.
So we signed players for maybe longer than we
Should have.
should have. And things didn't go well after that, and they felt they needed a change, and that's normal.
Right.
I have no. This is what it is, and I'm grateful to the organization. I hope I played a small part in some way or the other, and we move on.
Yeah. Speaking about moving on, so without saying too much, you've traveled all over, and you've obviously been in CONCACAF quite a bit. You have national team experience with Canada, with Trinidad. You played now as a coach. You've been here in the club with Halifax as well. Would you ever consider experiencing different parts of the world, like in the Asian market, for example, being a coach of a team in Asia, like in Japan or Korea, or
I would love to work in Japan, actually. I love that culture. I admire it. Their attention to detail. I really admire that culture. I would, I will work. I mean, I got offered, well, not offered, but a lot of feelers in Latin America, but I don't speak Spanish, and that's difficult. And I know I don't speak Japanese either.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I admire the culture a lot. But yeah, I would certainly entertain that.
Yeah. What is it that you like about that culture? I mean, I know in Japan specifically, and speaking with Issei, lots of respect. Like I know that respect is a big thing. They're very disciplined. I know that. You know, I've only touched down in Japan. You know, in the airport. But just being around, you know, Japanese people, I've always, I don't know. There's this feeling that I have.
Yeah, I love the culture. I did martial arts, and their their focus on technique, even the way they learn to write, their calligraphy, and how they hold their hand. They paid such attention to detail, and I admire their players. They're so technical, and you know, I really like, and they are patient. They seem to be a patient culture. You know, I don't know, but I've always admired them. I actually tried to get Holger to get me to Japan to do a coaching development. It's somewhere that I always wanted to go because I admire how they went about it. They got a league, then they brought in Brazilian coaches, Dutch, German at the various levels. They sent, I think, 50 coaches to Clairefontaine, to France.
Yeah.
And they spread them around France. They studied France, and then they were going to take them and send them to South America. And I mean, they
Wow,
know,
man.
they told me the exact same way they built a car is how they were going to build their football. They got the
Wow.
best car that they knew on the market. They scrapped it to the last bolt, copied it, and made it to suit the Japanese body.
Wow.
And that's how they were going to go about their football. When I heard that, I said, wow, this is something I would like to experience.
Yeah.
But I'm getting old. So we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, man.
What about the Issei story?
Oh man, I forgot about the Issei story.
Okay, let's do that one quick.
Okay, okay.
I was getting on a plane, and this lady came to me and she goes, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I have my nephew, I think it was nephew,
Yeah.
he plays in Japan. And he's Canadian. He's from Calgary?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's from Calgary and blah, 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 blah. I go, get me his phone number. And that's how Issei
Are you
came into
serious?
camp. Yeah, yeah.
How does she even know you?
I was coming on the plane with my Canada, and she said, oh,
Oh.
Canada soccer. She came, and I was hoping she was going to upgrade me when she first approached me. But no, I was in economy. And that's how we got hold of him.
Oh my gosh, that's it.
Pure fluke.
Oh my goodness. Okay, and
fluke.
he was on the other side saying, "Well, oh man, I'm gonna put them all together."
Yeah,
One more thing I want to talk about, just quickly. No, you know, but you were one of the only people that I've spoken to so far about. I call it the boat ride from hell. I don't know what it was, but it was the trip where we were supposed to play St. Lucia, but then something happened, and then we ended up playing Martinique, and so we flew over to Martinique, or we flew over to St. Lucia.
Dale was in charge. Yeah, I was there, but Dale was in charge.
Okay, yeah. And we took a boat from St. Lucia to Martinique. Do you remember that at all?
First to begin, I don't think we were supposed to play St. Lucia. We were supposed to play Martinique. We were supposed to land in St. Lucia, and they had this massive catamaran was supposed to take us there. But it was massive. It holds a lot of people. We got there, and both engines were off the boat. Both engines were off the boat. So Dale is like, what are we going to do? You know, and then they showed us this Gilligan boat. You know, the match agent is saying we got to play the game and blah, blah, blah. And it's only a short ride to Martinique. And we got on this boat. And I was like, there's not enough room on this boat for everybody. And it's like 2 life jackets. So anyway, you know, in typical fashion at the time, I remember it was Nashi, myself, and Dwayne sat on the bow of the boat, you know, and the boat took off, and it was really calm coming out the bay, and then all of a sudden, boom, waves, rain came, we were soaked, and Dwayne goes, what are we going to do? I go, I'm sitting right here. I'm going to get wet and dry on this boat. You know, and Nashi, myself, and And Dwayne sat on the bow of the boat. This thing is banging up and down. You guys are all getting sick at the back. Uh, I'd forgotten about that. It
Oh
was,
man.
actually, it was something you shouldn't forget, but maybe I wanted to forget, wanted to forget
It's one of
about
my
it.
fondest memories,
Eh?
man. It was one of my fondest
Yeah,
memories,
but it
man.
just goes to show what Canadian players would have done to play for Canada.
Yeah,
Because some of the top players could have easily have said, I'm not doing it.
exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I remember when we approached the boat, I was looking because I heard about the other thing that we're supposed to take. It didn't work out. And then I remember walking and I was looking for the other boat. And I remember there's this old man. It looked like if he had some kind of generator or something like that on the boat. It would look like the bottom of the boat was almost touching the water. And then it was like this.
Yeah,
And I remember saying, that can't be the boat. And yeah, we're getting on it. And I'm like, no, man, the equipment can't even get on that boat. It's like, y'all, we're getting on
It was
it.
crazy, and
Uh,
the funny thing is that I don't know if you noticed, but I was there, and this guy goes, Stephen Hart, and there's a solution guy there, Andrew Amore, and I knew him really well from here.
Yeah.
He was at university here, and he goes, yeah, the catamaran, something's wrong with the engines. I go, no kidding, there's no engines on, and the catamaran could hold, I think, 70 people. It was massive.
Yeah.
You know, so it would have been no problem going
Yeah.
over on that. It would be like a ferry.
yeah.
And then we got on to this. The only thing was missing was the team from Gilligan. And we got on to this thing. It was scary as hell.
It was, man. It was
scary.
dark. And
then
guys
we
were
got
crying.
there and immigration. We had to wait for immigration
That's
to
right.
come to. So we're throwing off all the bags and immigration and the match agent who was freaking out because
Yeah.
the match had to play. We've been paid and
Yeah.
he goes, just go to the hotel. Immigration will come to the hotel. Well, we didn't. We were jumping in taxis before he even
Yeah,
said that.
exactly. I remember.
You
Yeah.
know?
That was interesting. I remember because I went. She came to visit me in Czech Republic at Sparta Prague, and I said I got to go to St. Lucia. She said, "What are you talking about going to St. Lucia? I'm flying in." I said, "I got to go to St. Lucia," and so I remember I saw St. Lucia before she did because she hasn't been there for years, donkey years. So yeah, I was in St. Lucia. And it was beautiful when we were there. I mean, it was gorgeous.
Even
we
when
had
the
this
trip
villa.
started.
Didn't we have a villa or something?
Yeah,
Like,
it was nice.
It was
nice.
gorgeous.
And even when we went back because we had to land back. We
That's
flew
right.
back.
Yeah, we flew back.
And then
yeah.
we had to spend a night, and we were all swimming, and it was
Yeah.
really, really
It was
nice on the
gorgeous.
trip back.
That was one of my fondest memories.
Yeah.
Because of that bad boat ride, I felt like it brought everybody together. And every single time I talked to, because I think Issei's brother that was our first cap for the national team. And me and his name was Paris Farhan.
Yeah.
And that was me, him, and I think there was somebody else. That was our first appearance for the national team. That was our first experience. And I remember looking around and we were laughing, and I said, I wonder why Julian's not on this boat.
But Dwayne was there.
Dwayne was there.
Yeah.
And I was shocked that he was there.
Yeah, because Dwayne was sitting down in the bar with me going, wait till I write my book. And he did. He wrote his book.
There you go. So, but I'm so grateful for this opportunity, man. I always want to sit
Very
down
nice
with you,
to
even
see
since
you.
last.
Nice to see you.
So, man, thank you so much.
You're more
I
than
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Nice to see you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right. That's it. We're done.